So, with that all being said, I might, Cole, I hope you don't mind if yeah, right for me to kick off.
Go for it, mate.
Beautiful. So, thanks so much for joining this evening, guys. What we wanted to do was really kind of spend some time here walking you through the kind of integration between Gameplans and Stash. So I can see a fair few familiar names on the call here this evening. So most of you probably familiar with the Gameplans platform, and you're probably familiar with Stash as well. But we're here to kind of both Colin and I will kind of present kind of both of our worlds. So I'll kind of here chat to what we're doing here at Gameplans and our integration with Stash, and then kind of Cole will pick up from there on and kind of spend the back half of the session kind of explaining from a Stash perspective. But for those of you who don't know, and apologies again if I'm kind of covering some old ground here, I'm Joey. I'm from Gameplans. I'm going to spend the first part of the session here sharing my screen. So if I can find the right screen to share, that would be nice. This one here and that one there. That should be coming up on your end slowly. So, yep, I can see that up on the screen. Beautiful. So what we essentially do here at Gameplans is that we will kind of help with the whole onboarding process for your clients. So obviously you guys will be doing your usual discovery calls. And if you guys are already partners with us, you probably got maybe you have your own dummy accounts and you're using a dummy account to help close some business. We're seeing that as a really kind of good sales tactic, just presenting either your dummy account or your own personal portfolios to show future clients what they'll have access to when they sign on with you. So we're kind of being used there in that front part of the business, but also just in your general lead engagement. You can send as many clients as you like the Gameplans link. They'll come through, they'll do the fact find. You can then come through and you can see all of the clients sit here within your portfolio dashboard. So this is in this instance, this is the Stash partner dashboard. But if this was your business, it would have your business logo up in through here. And then you'll be able to come through and see all of the clients within your business who have done the fact find, some of which you've applied full access to, some of which you have not, because they're not paying clients of yours just yet. So this will be your dashboard where you can come through and you can assess who all of your clients are. Once a client has come in, they've done their fact find, you've had your initial discovery call with them, you're then happy, you've sent them the agreement, they've paid you the retainer first and foremost, make sure that we get the money from the clients up front. Then you jump into the Gameplans platform and you'll place an order on the account for that individual user, and then full access opens up for them. Everyone has the ability to come in and do a free trial. They'll also get free access to a certain element of our platform, but where all the juice there is, and in terms of all of the interactive charts where people can use the compass tab from a modeling perspective, that's shaded out and it says contact Colin from Stash to unlock your full access. Obviously, it would say contact you from your buyer's agency to unlock full access. So you're in full control, and that's when you use them as the final sales hook to convert those. Once they're reaching out to you to say, hey, can you unlock my account? We know that we've pretty much already got them. Then what we do, obviously we come through and we can see the clients who we have sitting in the account here as having full access. We can then jump in and we can have a look at the data behind each of these clients here sitting within our dashboard. We ask them, we have the full list of the questionnaire that the client has entered. So they've entered in the full fact find through here. Importantly, and this will tie in to Colin's part of the Prezzo with Stash, the asset selection piece, really important, so that you can see the client starting to put in a little around what they're wanting from this asset. So around a 750K property purchase, we're thinking around maybe in Geelong, we're thinking about using a 10% deposit. So that's really, really important. And the first kind of part of our integration with Stash, and I know many of you people many of the people on the call here may have seen this before, but for properties sitting within a client's portfolio tab. So for this particular individual, obviously all dummy data, real properties, but fake data in behind it, we can see that this particular person has 2 properties sitting there within their portfolio. So one being an owner-occupier, the property there at 12 Arthur Street in Mascot, highlighted by this little PPOR bubble there, and another one being an investment property, so 10 of 28 Melissa Street, Strathmore, and we can jump in and we can see the data in behind each of these properties. So we can see here that we have the client's purchase price, the current valuation. Stash has pulled through as much information around that acquisition as possible. And we can see importantly there, the Stash AVM. For example, if I was to come in here and hit edit property, you could come in and you could put in, maybe I'll just do the house next door to that, for example. So let's go 14 Arthur Street, Mascot. You come in, you load that in, and you can see that Stash will give you that AVM through there. The client has the ability to come in and put their current value too, but we can see, and this is all fake data that I put in, that Stash's AVM value much better than the client's rough figure there of potentially 197. So you can come through and you can see Stash has pulled the data there. It's a 423. It's a house, and this person's flagged that it is their principal place of residence. So really cool feature in through there that you can come in and you can do from a client perspective. You can do the same thing for the investment property in the portfolio as well. So again, here that we've got our value. Stash is telling us that our property is worth more than what I've put in there. And again, we can change this particular property as well to whatever we like. Maybe we'll make that 9 of 10 Melissa Street, Strathmore. And then Stash will come through in this instance. It hasn't grabbed. There may not even be a 9 of 10. I just made that up. I'm not sure if there even is one. So I'm going to come in and go, is there a 2 Melissa Street in Strathmore, a residential purchase? And we'll come in and we'll hit save on that. And you can see that this one here's a townhouse or something. So the property is worth a lot more than the 580 that I've put in there. Stash telling us the property is worth 114. So some really cool features in through here. And you can see there that now we can come in and we can tell the client in through here that, hey, we've got a ton of borrowable equity here sitting in your portfolio. You can see our borrowable equity, given the fact that the property is worth 114, our loan amount is 400,000. We've got $512,000 worth of borrowable equity. We'd be getting on the phone to them saying, hey, it's time to get ready and go for that next acquisition. And that would feed into really nicely our client dashboard. So we've made a couple of additional features through here where we've got a couple of new markers in here. So we can see, okay, of our clients, who has more than $50,000 worth of equity in the portfolio. So if we hit that number 2 there, it will tell us test user 1 and test user 3. It might be Bob and Jane, for example. They both have 50K in equity. Let's get on the phone to them because we've potentially got part of a deposit. We could also potentially change that parameter and go, okay, we only really want to know who's got more than 100K because it's more of a juicy deposit than what 50K is. You're probably relying on them having some cash savings. And then you can see there, okay, who's got 100K plus of equity? It's the same people. It's Bob and Jane in this instance, test user 1 and test user 3. Similarly, we can also do the same thing and track who has X amount of dollars worth of super. So you might set that parameter there at maybe we want to know who's got more than 2 or $250,000 worth of super because you're starting to talk around acquisitions around the $650,000, $700,000 price point. They could be conversations for you to go, gee, I've got a client list of X amount of clients. Who do I want to be focusing in on? Well, these guys here are probably ready to go because they've A, got X amount of dollars in super, or B, they've got more than $100,000 worth of equity. So we can get on the phone to them and start cold calling to say, hey, it's time to go for the next acquisition. If we jump back into this dummy user through here, so we've kind of spoken a little bit about the really cool integration there with Stash from an AVM perspective. We've also got the ability to come in and kind of see what part of Stash we want to pull through. So for example, so these are all the really cool fields that we can bring in. You might not want to show whatever bed count, for example, or whatever it might be. So you can come in and you can select what features from Stash we do want to bring in and what we don't. So that's found here in your partner profile. For the most part, we're seeing most of our clients come in and select all of it because why would we not want to automate that process? We're actually saving time for our clients as well. So each property, when the client comes in and does their fact find, usually takes them between maybe 3 to 5 minutes to complete as part of the onboarding process, part of their fact find, because you're starting to get in and dig out values and loans and whatnot. So if we can automate as much of that that process as possible for them, we're just going to reduce the amount of time that they've got doing that fact find, obviously going to lead to a little bit more client satisfaction as well. So some really, really cool features from that perspective. That's our portfolio tab. Obviously from a platform perspective, we do a really big deep dive into the existing properties within the portfolio. And then we come across into our Compass tab. And this is reserved for our full access clients only. So the free trial stuff, these clients won't be able to see. You have to have full access in order to be able to come in and do a deep dive into this particular page. So this Compass tab, all of these charts here are reserved for our full access clients. And this is where we come through and we start to do the modeling. Okay, well, what do we want from this next acquisition? How many properties do we need in the portfolio to get to whatever the client's end passive income target is? So maybe it's $250,000 worth of cash flow. We can see what that inflation adjusts to in 15 years time. We can see what their existing portfolio is doing, and then we can see the shortfall. So we can start to present to the client, okay, we're going to need to make X amount of acquisitions, of which we're trying to convert them into repeat business for you. Hey, we need to buy another 4 properties to get to that end goal. This is when we could feasibly afford to make those acquisitions based on the amount of cash, the amount of equity that we have within the portfolio. If we kind of get really granular around what we're expecting from this next property purchase, we start to dive into this manually entered spends tab, and we really focus in on what we want from this next property purchase. So we ask the client, part of their fact find, and also part of that one-on-one strategy session that we have with the client, what are we spending? Where are we at from a finance perspective? We pick this up as part of the fact find, but we clarify that in terms of our target purchase price. And now this is a really key part of our Stash integration, is that we come through, we put in, okay, what's our target purchase price? What's our deposit amount? And really importantly, what are the key features that we're looking for? What's the minimum growth rate that we're chasing here? Now, we might be chasing a minimum platform default that we have is 5%. So let's say, for example, we're chasing a 5% growth here, and then minimum rental yield of, say, 3%. Clients are okay. They can cop the negative cash flow that's coming through with the property because we want to be buying in location A, B, C, X, Y, Z. So we've come in, we've plugged in an acquisition in 2025. That 2025 purchase will automatically load through into this client's brief page. So now the brief page is really starting to take shape. What we've done there is we've taken a blend of the client's fact find, what they've asked for from an asset selection piece, and also what we've entered into the Compass tab in terms of what we're looking to acquire from 2025. And you can see there, we've got the purchase year, 2025. What are we targeting? We're targeting 750K as the acquisition. We'd like 5% growth or better. We'd like a 3% rental yield, and we're looking for a residential house that maybe has two or more bedrooms. We're looking for kind of 400 square meters. We're looking in and around Geelong. And we're looking, yes, we're okay to buying outside of the area. Yes, we're happy to buy into another state. So we get our brief. So this is in our client brief page. And then this brief page here will tie really nicely into where Colin's going to pick up in a sec and kind of take over from where our kind of two platforms integrate and speak to one another. Before I round out and pass over to Cole, I just want to kind of mention, and I'm sure most of you have kind of heard about us in the past. Some of you are already actively using the platform. Some of you already know about one of the features that we've had, but we've just started to roll out our Done For You property strategy service. So in the past, we've kind of pushed most of our clients towards learning the course, learning the tool. I understand there's a bit of a steep learning curve there that some don't have the capacity or desire to undertake. So we've actually launched this Done For You service where our in-house strategy team can actually facilitate the property strategy sessions for you. So hence the name Done For You. You can sit on the call. So some partner BAs sit on the call. It's a nice familiar face to the client. Some don't, obviously too busy, just focusing on doing deals. So you can offboard that process completely to us. We'll facilitate the session. We'll deliver you the client brief. And then that way, everything's kind of all seamless, interactive. You can just get to work of buying good quality property for your clients there. So that Done For You service is a brand new offering, one that we've actually been doing for quite some time, but brand new in terms of we're launching that wide scale to all of our partners, existing and new, where we'll actually facilitate the strategy session for you. You don't need to learn the tool. We will actually look through everything in terms of pre-planning, facilitation, post-planning, follow-up. And we also offer you the ability for us to re-engage with your client in 12 months time as well. So you can select a 12-month re-engagement, then 12 months post the initial session, we'll touch base with them. They would have probably bought, hopefully done very, very well. And then we can chat to them around, okay, now we've bought the acquisition, we're ready for the second property purchase. So we can obviously then try and feed them back in as repeat business to you as well. And really just kind of automating as much as possible, leaving you to do the really good work that you guys do in terms of going out there and buying really good quality property. So that's basically it from me from a game plans perspective for now. I know there may be some questions, but just again, while I'm on this, I'm just we'll save the questions for the end. Where we're finishing off here is the brief. This is the brief that we then feed over to Stash, and then I'm going to hand over to you, Cole, to pick things up from your own, mate.
All right, cool. Thank you. All right, let me see if I can share. I just need to stop sharing and then I'll jump over.
Yep. I think I'm done.
You are. All right, hopefully that is working. Cool. All right. So yeah, what happens is, so basically you've got your client, you've onboarded them, and you're starting to say, okay, they're looking for another investment property this year. What we don't want to do is sort of have you key data in multiple times across multiple platforms. So we're trying to be agnostic and integrate with with the tools that you're currently using, whether it's CRM, game plans, or anything. So you've basically onboarded your client, you've got their brief, and then you can come into Stash and sync those clients across. So if no one's really familiar with Stash, we do a couple other demos Tuesdays and Thursdays in terms of what the whole thing does. But just for tonight, we're just going to talk about the briefs and the game plans integration. So if I were to say bring into my clients, I've got a game plans connect up here. Basically, all you need is click on that, and it'll ask you for two different things: the API, some credentials that you'd get from Gameplans. So you put those credentials in, save it, and then what it'll then do is basically sync all your clients from Gameplans straight into Stash. So we don't have to do any double entering. We've got all our clients in here. I should see the third client, which is the one we were just doing a demo on. And basically, what we're bringing in is all that brief data, and now it's trying let's go and find properties. So if I have a look at this guy, we'll use this one as the example. I'll bring in that brief. So this is all the details that you've keyed into Gameplans. They're after investment, what their budget is, they're currently owning, they're looking for a house. I've just added in some other stuff just to give you a bit more in detail what I'll show you. Geelong, we're looking at any other key factors. We're targeting that 5% growth and that 3% rental yield as such. So that's automatically there for you. All the portfolio, automatically synced as well. So that's the portfolio that's set in Gameplans. So we're trying to keep these things in sync. Some of the things we're looking at with Gameplans is around, when this property is ready to go again, if it's, has it grown by 10% this last 6 months, 5%, and then really putting it back to you to go, okay, when's the best time to approach this person to go, okay, let's add this next property. So we don't really mind what platform you're doing the job in. It's kind of like, how do we make the data inside Stash get it into Gameplans, and how do we make the data in Gameplans, get it into Stash? So you can do what you need to do where you need to do it. So these are the current portfolio, the PPOR and the investment. So we put in that brief. We're looking at Geelong, and we're trying to find this property for up to 750 in 2025. So what it'll then do as part of our brief is bring in all those suburbs in that area that the person's actually wanting to look at. And we've brought in a whole bunch of other suburbs that, I haven't been considering that, but they're kind of in the same area or fit the same bill. So if I were to say we've got Belmont, we've got Corio, we've got East Geelong, Geelong West, North Geelong, South Geelong, and it just gives us a starting point to then go, let's go and find some properties and serve it up to the client. So we've got those suburbs there. If we wanted to have a look at some other suburbs that that the system's automatically brought back, so we've looked at what the brief was and gone, okay, here's some other suburbs that might match. And we can see some that are nearby that I forgot to add or didn't tell the buyer about. So we'll bring in a couple more just for that. So we'll bubble them up and they'll jump up to the top. So they're the suburbs that we're kind of starting to look at. And then it's now we're going to try and find properties. So we've done the brief. It's all in here. We've found our suburbs. We got all the data on all these different suburbs, so we can interrogate them a bit further, so we can see the different medians. So they're all kind of in the ballpark of what the budget was. We can see that growth. Some of them obviously haven't had growth in the last 12 months, but year on year for the last decade, they have. They've all had that near 5%. The yields all sitting at over 3s. The vacancy rate's relatively low. Lots of owner rocks, social housing. I can sort of see there is some social housing suburbs. So, I just want to take into consideration when I'm presenting that back to the vendor, the buyer, sorry. So I've got my suburbs, and then we'll go, let's see if there's any off-market properties. So this will actually look at any off-market that Stash has actually been finding. So we've got many other users using Stash, a lot of other buyers agents who are finding properties for their buyers, or they're working with agents who are giving them off-market listings, and sometimes they don't have an actual buyer for an off-market listing they've gotten from an agent. So what they're doing is putting them back onto Stash, and then putting them out to you to go, okay, maybe I do have a buyer that might suit this one. So there's some there that are relatively close. So Corio looks like a new build, so maybe not. But Edith and Belmont, 650, it's in budget, and it's an off-market sale. It's a property I could go and interrogate a little bit further and see if there's anything there. The other thing we're automatically doing is, again, you got your brief, you're looking in Geelong. We're going to bubble up to the surface any withdrawn listings that may have been on the market and didn't actually sell. So it's another way to try and prospect. Obviously, you can go after agents and go pure off market, or you can know, well, there's 41 properties in that area that potentially have been withdrawn over the last sort of couple of years that may be ready to come to market now. So you could either reach out to those properties direct or reach out to the agent that sold that or didn't sell that property last time to see if that is a property you might want to try and see if it wants to come to market, or the price has moved and they're ready to get that price. So it's just another, rather than you have to go off and do those searches, we're going to do it all for you based on what your brief was put in at the beginning on Gameplans. So we've got that. We can have a look through them. We can interrogate them further, but I'll leave that for now, and I'll just jump to on market. So there's all the on market properties that we've found in that budget, in those areas. We can then come through and interrogate these properties a little bit further. So this is where Stash really comes into its element. So I can then come through and go, like to look at this one. It's a 2-bedroom. Okay, it's not a 2-2, but it's 2-1. But just using it as an example, I can click on that one and then interrogate that property a lot further. So hopefully I'm still sharing that screen. It's coming up. Perfect. Yeah, cool. It's still loading. All right, I can see it there now. So basically, here's a property that's on market. It matched to my brief. And now we want to see if is this a property we want to basically shortlist and present back to my buyer. So we can interrogate this. We can see it's on the market between 680 and 730. So it is within the range of what we thought. Our estimate says low sevens. We can interrogate that on what other price estimates say. So if we want to jump over to REA or Domain or any of those other portals, just click that button. I'll see if it works. It'll bring up what that property might be worth over there. If it's on the market, they actually remove it. So that's something we don't do. We don't remove the AVM when it is on the market. So some of the sites do, some of the sites don't. But if you want to jump across, you can sort of see what other people think. We've got our neighborhood profile. So any other checklists on this property around why I might not want to present this to my buyer. So social housing is really low. It's a residential road, so it's low noise. Train station's fine, bus stop's fine, shops are fine. It's not too close to a roundabout. We look at those schools. If there is the buyers looking for those schools, or it's good from an investment perspective in terms of getting those rentals up. Is it in those school catchments that might be good for that? They can click on the links and see the My School and see all the details about those things. So it's kind of basically bringing everything possible about this property into this one page for you to do due diligence much, much quicker. This one doesn't flood. There's no bushfire. There is a heritage overlay, but I think a lot of things probably does have in this area. No biodiversity. And we can actually bring in some things here. So if I bubble up, I'm just going to bring in some of these different layers just to start to see, part of my due diligence, I want to make sure that there's nothing untoward around this property. So if I bring in things like, let's go flooding. There should be no flooding down there. Should be no bushfire, no heritage, no power lines, doesn't look like. I can bring in other data points like social housing and where the good schools are. So if I bring in social housing, I don't really know Geelong. I just know that they lost the premiership on the weekend. But if you have a look at here, sorry for anyone who's from Melbourne or Geelong, we've got the social profile. So we can sort of see the green ones are basically the better pockets of these suburbs. So if you don't know these areas specifically, so you're looking at a different area where you haven't actually been before, this type of data really helps you understand the different pockets within the market. So if you do know Melbourne, you probably know that North Geelong, and you come up here, it's probably a lower socioeconomic suburb, and there's different pockets there indicated by these social profiles. Basically, the lower the number, the lower socioeconomic these areas are. So you can sort of see the more south you get into Geelong, it's a bit of more socioeconomic, higher socioeconomic scores there. So you've got those, you've got the schools, so we can sort of see where are the good schools and where are the bad, not the bad schools, the lower socioeconomic schools. And they kind of then follow that socioeconomic profile. So basically these schools in Newtown, they're basically in the top 10% of public schools in the country from a socioeconomic point of view, versus something in Nor Lane, the schools in Nor Lane are probably in that bottom 10 percentile. So it's just sort of really helps you understand where these properties sit and whether they're potentially going to lead to potentially good investments for your buyer. So there's a lot of other data points there. You've got your medians, you've got your growth, so you can sort of see, okay, my buyer was looking in these particular suburbs and he was chasing that 5% yield, but there might be some other areas that in that area that he hasn't picked, or he or she hasn't picked, that may potentially yield or have more growth over those last decades. So it might have more growth baked into it. Same with yield. So we were chasing a 3%. You can sort of see the suburbs where you might be able to get a slightly higher yield, probably in those cheaper suburbs where, it comes with the territory, I suppose. So there's 4.5% yields, 3% yields in those different areas. So you can then go chase those areas if it's something that the buyer's really chasing. So there's a lot of different data points there that are really key, and we can go into more detail on another demo, but some really key information there, like building approvals ratio. Like, I don't really know Melbourne, but I know there's a lot of new estates being built, certainly out to that west. And some of these data points really help you understand that. So you can sort of see like these suburbs out there, they're basically doubling and tripling and quadrupling in size based on the number of dwellings that are being approved in those areas. So if you come up sort of north here, you'll sort of see in these sort of suburbs where they're basically so much more developments going into these suburbs. There's potential oversupply issues later on, or potentially not going to get that growth that you've got. So in this area down here, it's pretty fully established. There is some development probably going into these suburbs, but most of these suburbs in this area are relatively already established and not really going to experience a massive influx of dwellings. So I just thought I'd quickly show you that, because that's just really good on terms of location, just understanding. I've looked at this property, it's on market, I haven't yet shortlisted it, but I just want to make sure it all stacks up. So I've got all the property details. I can plug in any other property providers that I've got. We plug into Price Finder, National Property Data. I'm working on CoreLogic. So if you do have those other subscriptions, you can plug them into here as well. We can see this property last sold for $280,000. So it just helps us from an understanding of where the seller sits. So they've bought it, nearly 20 years ago, 17 years ago, for $280,000. It's currently on the market around the sevens. We can see anything around planning. So is there any flooding? We went through before, but any other development that might impact this property, both on a positive and a negative. So is there there's lots of residential development, or is there non-residential development that may have future job growth baked in? So is there hospitals being built? Is there a lot of investment into schools? So you can sort of see that within 2Ks of this property, there's $1.7 billion worth of projects that are being worked on. And we can go into a little bit more detail in a second. I'll show you that. We can see how the growth of that suburb's performed over time. You can see how the rental stats performed over time. We can store any walkthroughs onto here, and this is important when we want to show the vendor back on that. So if we have any walkthroughs that we've recorded or collected, we can put that into here. We can get further due diligence around before you dig. So if there's infrastructure and things like that under the ground, we can bring that into here. So it's basically trying to, all the things you're possibly doing on 50 other websites, bring it onto one platform that you can then cohesively present back to your buyer. We've got all the suburb stats in here. So how's that suburb performed over the last decade, where it kind of sits? This one was at 700. It was a 2-bed, so it's sitting below the median. But we can sort of see what a 2-bed's going for in that area over the last 12 months. So 680, so it's basically on the money. We can drill down into the properties, the comparable sales. We can see all the different sales that have happened over the last year. So if we have a look at just the 2-bedders and just to get an idea, is this about the right price? Obviously, you've got an estimate, but estimates are only as good as they are. That's why I check pretty much everyone. But looking at the comparable sales, looking at the photos of those comparable sales will help you just sort of understand that price around what target price of that property should be. So we see there's 44 sales within a couple of Ks in the last year, all around that price point. We can interrogate those properties and see the photos that are on there, or the floor plans or whatever's there. So you've got your comparables, you've got your development activities, any DAs that may impact this property in the future, may impact the growth of that. We've got that summary we went through before, but you can also interrogate the actual development projects that are there. So they're betting $8 million on the school, and that's earmarked from the beginning of this year, and it's currently in pre-construction. So future job growth, those sort of things. If there's any hospitals or other things that may lead to good for jobs, could have future impact on that property. Inversely, again, looking at residential developments could have the opposite effect in terms of future oversupply. So that's sort of development projects. That's everything about the property. And if I go back into the brief, we've interrogated that one in a fair detail. So I've looked at that on-market property, and I want to shortlist that one. So I can click that star, and it comes up into my property shortlist that I want to then show my buyer. So basically, I'm doing all my research, going through, finding all the properties that I think may suit that based on what that initial brief was. And I can see, okay, here's this property I put in. I've got a little AI tool here to show you, is it, just can't see it there. Does it match the brief of what was there? So we'll automatically compile that, going, does it fit the budget? Does it fit the price range? Does it fit the area? Any of the details that they've textually put into the brief, all the criteria that they put into the brief, bring it into here and go, yep, we think this is relatively close or relatively not close, let's get rid of it. And it's basically like adding more properties. So if we go through and do that due diligence and go into these properties, let's just add that one in. It'll bring it into here. And it's basically do that due diligence, find those properties, bring it in, and then present it back to the buyer. And then the format we've got at the moment for presenting it back to the buyer is basically this branded PDF document. We're working on a digital version of this whole thing, but basically here's the brief, everything we've gotten from Gameplans. Let's have a look at, here's these properties and these suburbs that we've then narrowed down that match that brief. So if we go, yep, let's present this back. This is all fully branded in your stuff, not Stash. We've got a summary of what we've discussed. Just go through about, and here's all the suburbs we've suggested, the price range. That's all AI driven, so you don't have to write that, but you can edit it. Here's a summary of that brief that we got from Gameplans. And then here's those suburbs that we've selected. So here's Geelong. Here's everything we know about Geelong. So you can deliver this at any stage throughout the process of going, here's a bunch of suburbs. Let's go and interrogate them further. They can then go, yep, I don't like that one, or I do like that one. Geelong West, East Geelong. So I think I selected like 8 suburbs or something. And then you've got all those suggested suburbs that we had. So any of those other suburbs which might be, so they can sort of interrogate them further, have a look, or as a VA, you can go and explore them and bring them into the surface. And then you got your property shortlist. So I selected this one, whether it suited or not, we'll assume it does. So here's this property. Don't mention a price or anything like that, but here's everything that stacks up in this property. No social housing, just all the key details that were in Stash that you can deliver to the buyer. And you could have 5, 10 properties that you present back to them for them to then go and interrogate further. We've got here's why we think it's a good match for you based on your brief. This one not, because it's 400, 2 for 24. Here's some comparable sales that'll automatically come back just to help with that pricing position. Just going, okay, we think this property will sit about here based on the evidence. And then you can bring in your walkthroughs and things like that will automatically come here if you had any. And then here's property number 2. We can have a look at that one. I didn't add the good match on this one, but I can if I just click on that. It'll go off and write that, but it may take about 10 seconds while I'm doing that. But it'll bring up all the credentials around this property of why it might be good, why not. So that's sort of this brief that you can then go and present back to the buyer at any point in time. It's going to be a live document, so we're going to digitize this whole experience so they can leave notes and things like that. But in terms of then surfacing these properties back into Gameplans, so you can kind of do it all in one spot. We don't really have to move from position to position as far as how do we get this information into your hands so you can get it into your buyer's hands a lot quicker. So that's kind of the integration with Gameplans. So you've got all your clients, everything's there. As soon as you update anything over in Gameplans, it's going to sync back into here. Gameplans is effectively your source of truth for everything with that brief for that person, and will help you then find those properties of matches. So that's sort of the brief Gameplans Stash integration. There is a lot more to Stash, but I think I know some people on this call have already been to those demos, so I won't bore you with those things again. But there is a lot more that we can present. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to jump in. There is some new stuff we are sort of working on in the background, which I probably can give you a quick snippet into. So when we were going through those my clients, I go bring them those suburbs again. And we're basically we're looking at what that person typed in, and it's pretty much based on the data that they did. If they're looking at the price, they're looking at the bed counts, all these types of easily searchable parameters that to bring back those properties on market. What we're looking at next is this sort of bringing this AI into this world. So if I had a look at, let me bring it up. I've got it on one of my pages here. Is basically whatever that person, so if they're looking at close to shops, good schools, no pool, doesn't flood, they could write whatever they wanted into that brief. We'll take whatever's into the brief. This is just sort of showing the technology behind it. But basically, we're going to then go and search all the properties that are on the market, regardless of what they've typed in. We're going to then analyze every one of those listings in real time and start to bubble the ones that we think might match that textual description of what they put into the brief. So like when you're searching on REA and domain, you're typing in, I want pool or no pool, you're ticking the boxes and things like that. People don't always work like that. They're just going up for my brief. I want this, I want this, I want this, I don't want this, I don't want this. So there's a lot of textual feel to it. What we're trying to do is convert that those motivations, those emotions, all that text into something we can actually use to search with. So rather than give you a whole bunch of properties back, this is the next part we're working on within the brief of going, based on what you told me, all the rich data, the structural data, and all the unstructured data, we're going to try and then find you those listings that are on the market, and also tell you whenever something does come on the market, next week, the week after, that may suit that brief even further. So I just thought I'd quickly show you that because that's what we've been working on. I've only just pushed this up, but it'll come live in the next week or so that we'll push that one. So yes, a lot of stuff happening there. I'll stop sharing and I'll start answering questions.
And if anyone wanted to just come off mute and ask any questions for either Cole, myself, or you can even drop it in the chat, is completely fine as well. If you'd rather just type your question in, I'm happy to read it out. Don't all jump out at once.
Jonathan does have a question. I'd like to confirm pricing, BAI member, Gameplans discount. I'm not. You want to just see that one, Jonathan? Joey?
Yeah. We'll if you just drop your email in the chat, we'll reach out and we'll have a tailored conversation and around the pricing piece. Definitely happy to reach out. Just drop your email in the chat there.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks.
There's links there from Brett. So if you do want a trial to Stash, or if you haven't had one, or even if you have had one, just reach out and we can get you back in there. If you haven't had one, go to that stashproperty.com.au/gameplans. You can get a 2-week trial there. And then just see how this integration works. There's so much more we're working on under the hood. There's lots more we're doing with the team at Gameplans. So I think we're getting feedback around, wouldn't it be cool if we can integrate this, or here's this data that's in Stash, can we expose it over in Gameplans? Easily done.
And that's the best part of it, right? We love to hear from you guys, even if it's for our own products or if it's the integration piece. That's where most of the product features that we've put on Gameplans have come from. It's come from feedback from our existing partners. So tell us what it is that you want to see either within our own individual platforms or from the integration piece, and we'll go to work to actually make that happen for you guys.
Cool.
Belinda.
Yeah, I have a question. I'm only new to BAI, just done my real estate course. So I'm waiting on license and stuff like that. I'm looking at or thinking about going more into the owner occupier space. So would Gameplans still be a good platform to use in the owner occupier space, or is it more built for the investor side? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a really good question, and we get asked that all the time. For the short answer to that is definitely used for both, because what we end up seeing is we see most owner occupier owners becoming investors or investors becoming owner occupied buyers. So there's just natural synergies in moving in across either camp. For most part, the owner occupied buyers are going out there and they're usually the ones that are going to develop a really quick amount of equity very, very quickly. So you might be able to turn them from owner occupied buyers into investors, and conversely, the investor clients to convert in to the owner occupiers. It really helps them from a money management perspective. They might not have the ability to go out there and buy that dream home just yet. You might be buying the stepping stone home. You can then just use a platform doesn't have to be about chasing $100,000 of passive income. It might be about starting with a stepping stone owner occupied home and getting into that dream home. And what are the steps that we could do? We could buy, we could renovate, we could take a capital gains tax free profit, and then we can get into the next home. We could do that again 2 or 3 times till we eventually get into that dream home. So it's definitely not all about investing and passive income. Obviously, it's great from that perspective, but it's a really, really powerful tool to help the owner occupiers as well. Okay,
cool. Excellent. Thank you.
And certainly from Stash's perspective, it'll do both in terms of whether you're trying to find any property.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Really good question. Thanks, Belinda. I don't know if I saw another hand briefly pop up there. Maybe I missed it.
Hi,
Can't.
can you hear me?
Or you're a bit sounding. Just go again there.
Can you hear me? I have one question. Yeah. When you say done for your customers, like when you enter customer enter details, you will go through all the property strategy and then how the pricing work. I mean, or do you want me to talk offline that when you say pricing, are we charging the customer for the briefing session or done for you, like, or you separate charge, or how that works?
I'm not sure I grabbed all of that question. Just sounding a little bit echoey in the background. I don't know if it was asking. I heard you say the done for you service there. Was it just understanding how the whole done for you service works? Was that the question? Devinda?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yep, that's much better. Go again.
Oh, that's much better. Yeah. So yes, that's right. So in other words, how that works. So done for you service, like, is a individual customers, like the paying, are we paying, are you customer paying you directly, or how that works?
Yeah, really good question. So you always stay in charge. So you're always the driver of all of this. You send the client the fact find. So you send them to Gameplans to do their fact find. They'll fall in under your administration. They start doing the fact find. You place the order on the account only once you've received the retainer from the client. So they sign the agreement, they pay you with a retainer, then you jump on and you provision full access with the strategy session. And then we basically would pick things up from that point. The client finishes the fact find, they're automatically prompted to book in with one of our strategists' calendar. We then forward the invite to you. If you decide to come, that's fine. If you don't, we'll just record the session for you or add in an AI note taker or both, and we'll send that across. And then we'll look after the planning side of things. So we'll make sure that we do data grooming, make sure that they haven't entered in any huge errors or major mistakes. We'll actually facilitate the session itself as well. So we'll look after the session, and then we'll do that post-session follow-up where we'll send you the breakdown in terms of what's happened. And if you decide to go down the 12-month re-engagement, we'll automatically take it upon ourselves to re-engage with the client. So in short, the client pays you, you place your order on the account for the platform. We don't ever ask any of your clients for money. All of that stays business to business. And obviously, we just want to make sure that you don't place the order on the account until you've received the retainer from the client. Everything else is automated. They're prompted to book times in, linked to the back-end strategists on our side, linked to their calendars. It's all, we wanted to make it as seamless as possible for you. We'll look after the facilitation. If you're a new partner to our platform, we take a little bit of time understanding your investment philosophy or understanding the types of assets that you would typically go and buy for your clients, so that we can make sure that we kind of deliver a session in a manner in which you would typically do so for your individuals, obviously understanding that each business has their own kind of overarching philosophies there. I hope that answered your question there, Daminda.
Yeah, that's the answer to the question. And the other question is already Jonathan asked the pricing and
yeah, beautiful.
Yeah,
if you've dropped your info into the chat there, we'll get in touch and give you the breakdown. Beautiful.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Thanks, Daminda.
Thank you.
Any other questions there, guys? No. Taking silence is golden, or any other last little chats? I can't see anyone else. Just seen a whole bunch of emails, which is good. I can't see anyone else asking any questions. Nope, wonderful. Nope. So we'll make this recording available as well, so you can come back and you can watch this at a later date. But from my end, thanks so much, guys. Thanks, Cole. It's a pleasure as always, mate.
Hey, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Solid effort as usual.
Cheers. I'm learning a lot, Joey. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Take
Bye.
care. Cheers.